So, the leaks and the spoilers are out for My Hero Academia, and let's just say that this chapter is going to tie up some loose ends that we've been waiting so long to occur when it comes to both Tomoe Shigaraki's final words to Spinner, as well as wrapping up a plot point potentially involving Eri. Yeah, there's a lot that we're going to go over, and we're going to go over it really shortly. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Andrew, and I'm here to cover the leaks and the spoilers for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 427, titled, Who Was Tomoe Shigaraki? And from what we're getting in this chapter, this is part of a sort of news bulletin or news program that is talking about Tomoe Shigaraki. And from what we're getting with the chapter, this type of storytelling device using the news is really corresponding and cut with conversations that we have with the characters such as Deku in this chapter, and it's done in a very interesting way that I can't wait to just dive more into it. So let's just start off by going into the leaks right now. So the chapter starts with a TV program titled Who Was Tomoe Shigaraki?, with a reporter asking this question to several people on the street. One man says that he was scary and that he's glad that he was killed. Two women say that he was a murderer who killed some of their friends. The old lady who ignored Tinka wonders why he couldn't just stop, and a man says that at first he seemed like a random villain and that no one thought that he would be such a threat. The program ends by showing the wreckage and saying that not everything has been rebuilt yet. And this next line actually comes from Twitter, so it's going to be slightly different. But we have Deku sitting in front of Spinner, and the doctor says that the quirks that he got from All For One were turning him into a Nomu. But the research that they were carrying out at the Central Hospital allowed them to stop the process. Spinner asked Deku what a murderer like him is doing here. Deku says that he won't deny that he's a murderer, but that he's here because Shigaraki left him a message. Spinner asks if he's making fun of a dead guy, and Deku reveals the message. Spinner is confused and asks if Tomoe really asked Deku to say that to him. Deku confirms, and Spinner asks if Shigaraki didn't mention Toga, Dabi, or Compress, but Deku says that the first message was only for him. Spinner says that Tomoe was his hope. He smiled as he said that he wanted to destroy everything, and showed him a beautiful horizon in Deka. The more Spinner despairs, the more his body grows. He thinks to himself, no, I've decided to stop thinking. If I think, I'll only hurt myself. But he keeps talking. He says that because he's a heteromorph, he has always been treated with prejudice. He's suffered as normal. But Shigaraki allowed him to dream, to become someone, and to be a part of something big. The doctor says that they'll have to intervene, but Deku asks him not to come any closer. The next panel shows a giant Spinner holding Deku and saying, Tomoe Shigaraki was my hero. So, from the first part of the text spoilers, we get a very better understanding of what's going to be going on in the chapter, as well as we get a better understanding of how the people are feeling about Tomoe and how they're feeling about the situation that they're in right now. But what we also get is a little bit of confirmation of what's going on within Deku himself and how he views himself in this moment, as well as how he's going to be perceived by the characters such as Spinner. And we get some little bit of tidbits of information about what's going on with Spinner and why he's in the state that he's in right now, as well as getting a better understanding of how his new powers are working in this moment. And how the words that Tomoe left Deku is going to be a little bit more complex in the mind of Spinner than we could have ever expected. But going from there, we are going to get a little bit more of the conversation between Deku and Spinner within the next part of the text spoilers. And how it starts off with, in the TV, a man says he was a villain with no ideals who only wanted to destroy. Spinner says he loved video games. On the TV, a man says that the police is starting to unravel Shigaraki's past, but they can't empathize with him because history may repeat itself. Spinner says, when I was a shut-in, I played a lot of games, and he liked the same ones as me. On the TV, a man says that he was a piece of shit. Spinner starts crying and says that he was his best friend. Deku says that Shigaraki said, I have to become a hero to them. Right inside Tomoe's heart, there was the League. Deku says that Shigaraki must have thought the same thing about Spinner, and that's why he passed on the message. Spinner remembers his whole journey and how at some point he stopped thinking and just went with the flow. He remembers the moment in the cave with Shigaraki lying on the ground with all the fingers and comes to the conclusion that if he had realized that something was wrong and taken one more step in the right direction, he could have saved his friend slash hero. The TV says that the new All for One slash Shigaraki could be out there, so they have to watch out for new threats. Spinner says that Deku and the others will keep fighting, they'll forget about the League and smile. He's going to write a book about Tomoe Shigaraki, the symbol of fear. Spinner says, the past never dies. I will continue what Tomoe Shigaraki started. Deku says that instead of a book, it should be a comic. Spinner is confused, and Deku makes a correction. He won't forget Shigaraki for as long as he lives. He looks very determined. And this is pretty much the end of the conversation that we're getting between Deku as well as Spinner. And what I enjoyed about this section is the emphasis of the juxtaposition between how Spinner views Tomoe Shigaraki and how the world views Tomoe Shigaraki. And how inside of Deku, he has this resolve to not want to forget Tomoe Shigaraki, because by doing so, that's going to potentially lead to history repeating itself. So I really like, from what we're getting right now, is the idea and the motif or the themology or whatever you want to call it of the chapter, of really just showing the juxtaposition of how people view Tomoe Shigaraki and how Spinner views Shigaraki, and how neither side can really understand who Tomoe Shigaraki is unless the information is known to both sides. And I'll get into that more in the actual chapter review proper, but this is something that we need to address within the world of My Hero Academia to make sure that the entire world doesn't collapse once again if a new Tomura or a new All for One were to come back into vogue and potentially repeat the cycle again. And we're getting towards the end of the text spoilers, where the last thing that Spinner tells Deku is to tell the, quote, octopus to do his best. Deku leaves the room and meets with Tsukachi and All Might, who is in a wheelchair. All Might asks him if he's got to tell Spinner the message, and Tsukachi starts explaining what happened to Overhaul. Chisaki was arrested again, and the Hasakai boss went to visit him. Chisaki thought that he was in a coma, but the boss says that the support items managed to nullify the effect of the Overhaul quirk on him. Also, he's not the boss anymore, since the organization no longer exists. The boss is extremely disappointed and says that this is what happens when you stray away from the path of humanity. He says that he always reached out to Chisake, but in the end, he made the wrong choice. Perhaps Kurano should have scolded him more. Chisaki cries and apologizes. The boss says that it's too late to apologize to him, and that he should apologize to Eri for the rest of his life. Eri will forget about Chisake, but he has no right to forget what he did to her. The boss then says that he'll stay by his side, scolding him until he dies. Deku thanks Tsukachi and responds by saying that this option was much better than making Eri relive all that trauma. Deku asks how they could prevent these things from happening, and Tsukachi says that it's impossible. Tsukachi jokes, only if Hawks multiplies the number of heroes, and Deku believes him, replying, Hawks has that much power? All Might says that Deku has to go back to school because the first years have arrived. Deku says that the hero course has few extracurricular activities, so they'll hardly see each other. However, the last page shows many girls shouting, Todoroki Senpai, Dynamite Senpai, and running after them. The chapter ends with a shocked Deku and an envious Mineta, with Bakugo shouting, all these girls need to get expelled. End of chapter. So, remember when I was talking about how there's another potential villain wrapping up the Eri subplot? Yeah, we get it with Overhaul, and just to give like a little overview of how I feel about it, this is probably the best thing that we could have had for the Overhaul and how to respond to it, and that this is something that I kind of wanted and expected was going to happen with Overhaul, and the fact that this is happening now before he could actually apologize to Eri is actually a more perfect understanding of the situation and how it should have been done than anything that I could have thought of. So that's just my quick thoughts about it, but I may go over it more in the actual review proper. But yeah, within the next chapter, from what we're getting with the end of the text spoilers, we're going to be getting to meet some brand new first years, maybe having Deku in the class interacting with them, and I think I know where potentially the final chapter is going to go to, and we may not get a full like time skip chapter, unfortunately, but that's something that I'll discuss in the actual review proper. But yeah, overall, from what we're getting with the spoilers, this is going to be a very interesting chapter. I can't wait to see where the story is going to be going from here, because we're only going to have 3 more chapters left after this, and unfortunately we're going to be on break next week, so I'll be seeing you guys within the next 2 weeks. But yeah, let me ask you this. What did you think of the chapter? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? And how do you feel about the conversation between Deku and Spinner? Leave your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!